Hello folks, and welcome back to the workshop. This is an update. Quite a bit's happened in the last 7 or 8 days. We're going to pull pull that name out of the hat for the person that won the book. And if I step to one side, you might see a little preview of something else that's coming later in the episode too. Right, well, a week has passed, or actually 8 days. So it's time to do the draw for this tool and cutter sharpening book. I've got 46 entries and I've got them printed out and chopped up and folded up here. So let's just stir them up a bit and try to make sure I've got one only. And it's Mr. Breakit. So well done, Mr. Breakit. Get in touch, tell me what your postal address is, and I'll get this book sent out to you in the next few days. Right, well, the first thing I worked on this week was the hole in the floor. There was a concrete patch needed, and it was something I've been sort of tripping over and trying to avoid doing because I'm not a fan of concreting. But there were areas of the patch where this was done in two steps, I should say. The side closest to the camera was the original garage floor, and the side furthest away was the new garage floor. And where they join in this particular area, the old garage floor was too close to the surface of the new garage floor, and so they didn't fill in the concrete there. And it's quite a thin, weak area as well. So you can see from here that it's only 10 or 15 mil thick. And what I've done with the scotch hammer, thanks Jeff for the loan of your scotch hammer, that's been really helpful. I've managed to sort of break away the new slab till it was at least 25 mil thick, and these pictures show you the sort of result that I got there. And now I've got a sort of vertical edge rather than it feathering away to nothing. I've got a vertical edge around where the new hole needs to be filled in. And also some of the original slab was too thick in that area and needed to be sort of excavated away. So you can see how I've used the SDS drill to drill a line of holes, and the cold chisel and so on, just to deepen it in all the areas, just so I've got 25 mil everywhere. And then I gave it a paint with some PVA, some watered down PVA, and mixed up 1 bag of concrete and just filled up the hole and tamped it into all the crevices properly and gave it a screed or a smooth off with a concrete trowel. And this is the finished job. And since this was done, I've actually been able to roll the pallet jack over the concrete with a weight on it, and it seems to have stuck well, and it hasn't had any shrinkage cracks or any of that kind of stuff, so I'm pretty happy. This is a good enough repair for me. And now I don't have to think about it anymore. So hooray! The other thing I worked on this week was the clamp rack, and I wanted to get all my clamps, which were scattered around the workshop, into one place and easily accessible. And the new area of wall that I had, the white area that filled in where the window was, that I showed you last week, that was the ideal place to put some clamps, I think, because it's near the woodwork area and the clamps are mostly for woodwork. So I scavenged around in my offcuts pile and found some hardwood plywood of various thicknesses. I had to laminate 3 pieces of 12 mil to get a nice thick piece that took the weight of the clamps, and I managed to use an 18 mil piece to just sort of hold the clamps onto that hanger. So here's some pictures of me clamping up the laminations and cutting them up on the saw, and here's what the stack of 18 mil parts looked like. And after gluing up the blanks into the 36 mil parts, they look like this. And I've knocked all the corners off. I'm actually copying a design that I found on a website. I'm just copying it by looking at it. I didn't use the plans or anything. And yeah, this is the pile of clamps that's to live on this clamp rack. So quite a few clamps there. And then we've got the mock-up. This is how the arrangement of clamps is going to go. I did a lot of working out manually with spacing and that kind of thing, and I think they look pretty good. So I gave them a coat of water-based polyurethane and got them hung up on the wall. And after a bit of time for them to dry off and for the varnish to go off, I loaded up all the clamps. I also made another accessory which holds all the sort of hanging clamps. I've got G-clamps and some of the welding clamps on here. And that looks pretty cool. That works well, and I can get things without having to undo and do up clamps, which was one of the main things. And I don't have to stretch too far. They're all in one place, nice and organised. I still need to make some more hangers for the sort of spring clamp style clamps that I've got, and that shouldn't be too difficult. I might get to that next week. Now, there were two new additions to the shop. The first of those is this. This is the set of slitting saws that I bought online, and here's a picture of me doing some slitting work on a piece of aluminium. I don't use the slitting saws that often, and that's because I don't have very good slitting saws. I've got some smaller ones that are quite blunt, and I manually sharpened one, and that's improved it to the point where I can use it, but it still doesn't have a massive amount of reach. So I bought some slitting saws that have a 1-inch ID, and this means I'll need to make up a 1-inch arbor at some point. But I bought a variety of thicknesses and sizes. I think they're all 3 or 4 inch, 75 to 100 mil, and a few different thicknesses. So I should be all set forever, pretty much. Just need to make up that arbor, and that'll be good. And this is the other new addition to the workshop. This is quite a big addition. This is a shaping machine. So this, you would have seen these on other metalworking channels, I'm sure. But if you've never seen one before, basically the piece on the top slides forwards and backwards, and you attach a cutting tool to the end. And you can use this to cut slots in steel, or to surface flat pieces, or you can actually drive the head at an angle and cut dovetails, all of that kind of thing. You can make keyways, inside pulleys, and all of that. Well, this is the shaper. It's a Värnamo VMA, made in Sweden, EV3 shaper. 6 gears on the gearbox, and these 2 levers control those gears. And this is the clutch. This is the sort of power crossfeed, and these shafts are an 18mm square, and I don't have the correct crank. I found that a 21mm combination spanner with a 12-point ring seems to work. This thing here is an offset adjust, and this allows you to feed more or less per revolution, as far as I understand. It's got a table that doesn't rotate or anything, but it does have this outboard support, which is really good. I'm sure it lends a lot of rigidity to the thing. It's got like a knee or a vertical column here, and that's connected via a bevel gear or a worm to this. There's no powered down feed, so this bit operates really just like a compound slide on a lathe, slightly chunkier. This can be angled. This is a clapper box, and there's a pin in there. I haven't got it done. And it came with just the one tool, so I probably will end up making some more tools. This is the base of the vise that I've got, which we think is a shaper vise, because this jaw is fixed and this jaw is moving. And my clamp kit, which I bought for the mill, fits the shaper perfectly, so I'm very happy about that. And I don't know if I can show you properly, but there's a whole lot of original scraping marks all over the ways of this thing. There's also some surface rust, and that needs to be cleaned, and I hope that doesn't give me too much damage. I hope there's not too much damage underneath that. But everywhere you look, there is original scraping on this machine. So I think it's in very good condition. Even though the paint's a bit dinged up, I think it's been looked after, and I'm quite hopeful. Now around here is a 3 horsepower 3-phase 1440 RPM motor, and for Americans that's your 1725. It's a 4-pole motor, and this pulley sits on a 24mm shaft. Pulley needs boring out to suit 28mm because I picked up a single phase 3 horsepower motor which I've reversed, and it comes with a 28mm shaft, which is standard for a 100 AL frame motor, which is what this is. So with a bit of wiring and a bit of boring out and modifying that pulley, we should be good to go with this motor. Anyway, that's all there is to tell you about the Shaper at this stage, other than that I'm very excited to have it. I'm looking forward to putting some really nice shear cut flat surfaces onto things. That should be great fun. And obviously I'm going to be referring to videos from people like Rustinox, Matty's Workshop, who else? I think Stefan had some videos earlier, and Machine NZ is now running a Shaper, so I'm sure that all those people have got lots to teach me. This thing weighs about 900 kilograms or 2,000 pounds, and it's currently on a pallet, which is not ideal. I'm not going to do any modifications to the slab in here. I may bolt it down, but I'm not going to dig it out and put 2 cubic meters of concrete under it, for example. So we'll have to come up with something creative to hold this thing still and not damage the slab. Okay, that's all for the Shaper for now. Now I've moved quite a few machines now, back and forth from different places, and I've changed and upgraded machines over the last few years, and never had any safety issues or an injury of any sort. And we had our first injury during this Shaper move, and the injury was to the engine crane. The wheel hub smashed out of it. It was a cast iron wheel, and it was just too brittle, too thin in the casting, and we were pulling the trolley along, pulling the engine crane along with a lot of weight on it, so we should have expected it to fail. But I'll repair this wheel at some point in the future. One more thing, I just want to show you this picture of a sewing machine which was owned by the guy that sold me the 3 horsepower motor, and he's actually put a reducing gear in here. He's actually put another sort of idler shaft with a 3 or 4 to 1 step down, so that he can use an ordinary machine with a thicker needle to sew leather and vinyl and upholstery and all this kind of stuff. He found that the commercial sewing machines, which are designed for the job, they're much heavier, much more heavily built, much bigger motors and all the rest. They cost a lot of money, even used, and he wanted a cheap or free option, so he picked up this sewing machine for next to nothing, put an extra shaft on it, slowed it right down, put a bigger flywheel on the top, put a thicker needle on, and he also filed the slot of the stitch length adjuster, which is that lever in the middle, so that it can go down further and make a longer stitch, which I thought was really clever. So this is an option for people that want to do some heavier sewing work. You can just modify a cheap machine and go for it. Hello, we're here in Tommy Gun Machining Workshop. So here's Tom.
Hello.
And Stuart Hingston.
There you go.
We'll put links to their channels below. See you soon.
Catch ya.
Bye.
Okay, thanks for watching. I hope that you found something that was interesting there, and I'll see you next time there's an update.